This is Old World, and it was created by the same mastermind behind the likes of Sid Meier's Civilization IV and Off-World Trading Company. It released roughly 1 month ago today, but you might have missed it for a whole number of reasons. It was surrounded by Civilization VI announcements around the Civ 6 Anthology. Humankind had its open beta. It was a crowded space. I think 1 month on after its release, we can't fault them on their ongoing community support. Take a look at the number of updates and patch notes that we've received already, only 1 month after its technical official release. And you got to hand it to Mohawk Studios, Mohawk Games, behind Old World for really putting in the effort here. Now granted, a lot of the stuff on this list is relatively minor, right? It's additional support for the AIs, it's maybe some tweaks to how the economy works, perhaps some slight alterations to multiplayer, more on that later, but all in all, while these updates aren't massive, it reflects a development studio that's really willing to support the game moving forward, and I like that a lot, because Old World does appeal to a very specific audience. For those unfamiliar, and if you haven't gathered already by the footage on screen, Old World merges civilization with sort of more of the dynasty building, character development features of Crusader Kings, indeed Crusader Kings III. The map represents itself like a 4x map. You may almost feel as though you're playing Civilization 3 or 4 just by looking at this map and this hex grid, if it weren't for the fact that these are, of course, hexes and not square tiles. That being said, it does have a very Civ feel to it in terms of its tech tree, its discovery, its unit types, how, generally speaking, how we settle cities, engage in warfare, so on and so forth. It's that 4x strategy genre, that formula that we love. We build cities, build units, capture yields that are production, gold, broadly based around perhaps religion, civics, technology, and try and win the game. But then there's a whole other layer to Old World, and that, as I say, is the Crusader Kings style, family dynasty to it. Indeed, in Old World, a game lasts 200 years, which coincidentally is 200 turns. That's no mistake, of course. One in-game turn is actually the equivalent to 1 year, and that goes for your character and your entire family. You will age with time, and your character, believe it or not, won't make it through those whole 200 years. In fact, you'd be lucky if you only had 3 rulers throughout that period. Chances are you're gonna have a few more, given the amount of random events and intrigue they can get up to throughout a playthrough of Old World. There are some 3,000 unique, dynamic events on offer in Old World. Some of them relate purely to your civilization. It may be the discovery of an immigrant population who joins one of your cities and grows its pop. However, some of them relate specifically to your character, i.e., does the founder of the city, perhaps let's call him Ned the Great, does Ned the Great go on a hunting trip where he falls off his horse and gets stabbed by a spear or something ludicrous like that, comes back wounded? That matters because now your leader gains the wounded trait, and they're perhaps not as great of a military leader as they were before, but maybe more likely to read books, and so their intelligence increases over time. It's these sort of dynamic features that help you not only build a relationship with your character, but also with their wider family dynasty, their court. Indeed, you can you can appoint your queen, your children, your princesses, your dukes, whomever you want onto your court and have them as your advisors. They can go and conduct diplomatic missions and trade missions. Really, the possibilities are endless, and that is fundamentally how a game of Old World plays, and I'm pleased to report that still after release, Old World is managing to still capture my attention. Has it overthrown, for me personally, my interest in, say, Sid Meier's Civilization, both Civ 5 and Civ 6, or indeed Humankind, which is pressing on our heels now just days away from release? No, it hasn't. But Old World has been a welcome distraction and point of difference from those two. Indeed, I can get that Crusader Kings experience without fully feeling weighed down by the immense pressure of a Crusader Kings playthrough, which can be a little bit not tedious, because I do really, really enjoy it, but it can be sort of a bit all-encompassing, let's say. Whereas a game of Old World will generally not set me back much longer than sort of 12 to 20 hours, providing I make it through into the end of the game and don't quit, because either the late game is a bit of a drag, and that is one of my ongoing complaints with the game, or simply that the outcome is predetermined. I've booted their backsides and won, or I'm unfortunately losing. Either way, I do have to concede that Old World's later game does still lag a little bit. It can feel a bit boring. Again, this is not unique to Old World. It is prevalent throughout the 4X genre, but it's important to note that Old World does suffer from this quite a bit, and I think one of the reasons in particular, and maybe this is just a me thing coming from playing quite a lot of Civilization, you may be different as a player with your own unique experience, but I find because Old World is set in 200 turns, a very restricted period of history, not only with where we put our cities, there are, as you can see, specific city sites where you must settle, but also in terms of the technology tree, right? It's a very narrow band of technologies within that 200-year period. And I find that can sort of, perhaps it doesn't stimulate me enough, perhaps I get a little bit tired of this era, I want to move on into the next one, I want to advance faster. Maybe that's just a me problem, constantly looking for the next dopamine hit in these games, I'm not sure. But I do personally prefer to advance through technologies a little bit faster. I like to cover off a little bit more of human history. That's not to say that Old World is a bad game because of this, it just makes it more of a niche or niche experience. And for you as a player, that will either make it much better or significantly worse, depending on where you sit on that debate. Other things to note about Old World, as I mentioned in the beginning, it did release as an Epic Games exclusive, and it remains that way. I haven't seen official confirmation, but rumor has it, and I have it on reasonable authority, I've heard it from a lot of you in the comments, that it won't be Epic Games exclusive after 12 months from its initial release, which was the 1st of July 2021, so quick maths. 1st of July 2022, we're likely looking at a Steam release for Old World, and I think that will help it out. Overall, to summarize, I think that since its release, Old World has proven to be a really good, solid game. Has it taken over as my favorite strategy game? No. Will it ever do that? Probably not. I'm keen to see where Amplitude Studios, I'm keen to see where the developers take it next in terms of DLC expansions. I'm also really excited to see how Old World can continue to shape once it releases out across more platforms, i.e. once it releases on Steam and becomes available to all players, not just to those on Epic Games. Nothing wrong with Epic Games, I'm just saying it is less available the way it is at the moment. Thank you very much for watching. My recommendation would be to hold off. It's a good game, it releases at $40 US, retails at it, so it's cheaper than most, but I do think you'll be able to pick it up on special very soon. It strikes me as that sort of slightly more indie game. They can afford to be a little bit more liberal with their specials. I'd keep an eye out for the discount rack, because I think you'll find Old World there soon, not because it's bad, but because it's a fairly niche and somewhat specialist experience. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.